Hi, welcome back to Westbury 101. I'm Brian Westbury, Chief Economist at First Trust Portfolios. Remember, we want to be the antidote to conventional wisdom. Well, as you know, we have been talking for 6-7 months now about velocity, the velocity of money. We feel that the economy had actually avoided recession right up through September or so of last year, and that's when Lehman Brothers failed. Hank Paulson laid out the TARP plan. President Bush went on TV to sell that, told everybody they could lose their job, their pension, their house, but not to panic. And of course, everybody did in the midst of all of that. We had a huge slowdown in the velocity of money late last year, which is what pushed us into recession and allowed everyone to argue that, hey, those who were calling for recession had been right all along. And that's kind of interesting because if you think about those pessimists, what they were really saying was that we had built our economy up on a sea of debt, a balloon. We had just blown this balloon of debt up and everybody was living beyond their means. And now that this balloon is shrinking, the house can no longer be used as an ATM, that in fact the economy has been in this long slide and may never come out of this depression or recession, at least for a very, very long time. Well, let's kind of look at some of the facts about that. Here's retail sales. With autos, it looks pretty much the same way. But the bottom line is if you go back to 2006, 2007, all the way up through the middle part of 2008, this is the zero line here. We were bouncing all over the place, but in fact, 2006, 2007, early part of 2008, retail sales were continuing. It wasn't until the second half of the year when we had this massive decline in spending. This is the panic that we have talked about, the velocity. So even though housing was weak for all of these years, and in fact some of the weakest housing markets we've ever seen, retail sales stayed up right through August, September, when they finally plummeted. But now they have rebounded, and this is along the lines of what we have been expecting. We have expected velocity to snap back. We also know the textbook way of fighting a drop in velocity is to increase the money supply, which the Federal Reserve has been doing dramatically. And as a result, what's happening today is not a surprise. In fact, we're getting a whole host, almost on a weekly basis now, numbers that are surprising to the upside. The Richmond Manufacturing Index, the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, both were stronger. They're still on the weak side, but stronger than the market expected. If you look at durable goods for the month of February, they were up 3.4%. The consensus expected them to be down almost 2%. Existing home sales, new home sales. Existing home sales are up 5.1%. New home sales up 4.7%. Housing starts up 22% in the month of February. And retail sales overall, if you look at January and February, this is including autos, we're up 10.7% at an annual rate. In other words, what I'm suggesting is that something's going on. Something positive is going on. So it's not a surprise to me to see the market have a very strong couple of weeks here. In fact, we're up over 20%. Now, one of the things that worries me is that people aren't convinced that this is real, and that is that they're buying in to this pessimistic forecast, that this is just a dead cat bounce, that in fact the savings rate is going up, consumer debt is going down, deleveraging is taking place. But I want to remind you that when the Federal Reserve gets easy, when the Federal Reserve starts floating the economy on a sea of liquidity, you can't fight that. Don't fight the Fed is one of the stalwart statements of my career, 25, 27 years. I've heard it over and over again, and it's absolutely right. People think that the Fed won't be effective, but it always is. Now, one of the things to remember here is that all of this rebound in activity in January and February that we're seeing happened before the stimulus bill could have any impact, before the new toxic asset purchase plan could have an impact, before the new budget that our President Obama and Congress are working on now could have an impact. This is truly a rebound in velocity and a sea of money that the Federal Reserve is putting into place. It's also, by the way, before the $1 trillion of additional money that the Federal Reserve has said it will push through the system. So what I believe we are seeing is the very beginnings of a rebound in velocity and a strong economy, much stronger than the consensus expects. And that leads me to believe that the market will be a lot stronger than people believe as well. Even in the 1970s, in the midst of bad policies all around, an easy Federal Reserve policy led to a 57% jump in the S&P 500 in 1975 and 1976. I think we are about 20% into another 50% gain in the market right now, even though some policies out there are bad. So what I'm coming back to is, this is not a dead cat bounce. This is a real recovery that's taking place in the economy, and we're going to be shocked. I think the consensus, the conventional wisdom, will be shocked in the months ahead as the economy continues to perform very well. Thanks for coming to Westbury 101. Remember, we want to be the antidote to that conventional wisdom. See you next time.